At 4 a.m., the harsh buzz of the alarm clock cut through the heavy silence of Lena Carter's tiny apartment. She groaned softly, rubbing the sleep from her eyes with one hand while reaching to silence the persistent noise with the other. The faint glow of the street lamp outside filtered through cracked blinds, casting thin slats of light across the cramped room. Lena's gaze drifted to the small figure curled beside her on their worn-out mattress. Her 12-year-old son, Micah, breathed softly, his chest rising and falling in a rhythm that was usually a comfort. But tonight, there was a faint wheeze threading through each breath, a reminder of the asthma that flared up too often these days. She reached toward the battered nightstand and picked up Micah's inhaler. It was nearly empty. A tight knot formed in her stomach, but there wasn't time to think about that now. Rent was overdue, the electric bill was hanging by a thread, and she only had enough cash to scrape by for another week, if nothing went wrong. Moving quietly, Lena slipped out of bed. She pulled on her faded blue janitor uniform, the fabric rough from too many washes. Her steel-toed boots, scuffed and weathered, were laced up in practiced motions. She threw an old windbreaker over her shoulders and wrapped a stale slice of bread in a napkin, the only breakfast she had, before shoving it into her pocket. Outside, the early morning air was bitter cold. Lena braced herself against the wind as she walked briskly toward the bus stop. The city around her was still half asleep, the streets shrouded in pre-dawn quiet. The storm that had been brewing all night finally broke loose. Thick clouds hovered low, and the first fat drops of rain began to fall. By the time Lena reached downtown, the drizzle had turned into a relentless downpour. Wind howled through the narrow streets, tugging at her jacket. Her thin hood offered little protection, and soon the rain had soaked through to her skin. Still, she pressed on, her mind already focused on the long hours of scrubbing floors and hauling trash that lay ahead. That's when she saw her. An elderly white woman stood under the awning of a closed storefront, shifting anxiously from foot to foot. Her silver hair clung wetly to her forehead, and her beige wool coat, though modest and well-kept, was soaked through. She looked entirely out of place in this part of town, like someone who had wandered where she hadn't meant to go. Lena hesitated, but only for a moment. She approached the woman and raised her voice above the storm. "Ma'am, you can't stand out here like this. You'll catch your death." The old woman startled, turning toward her with a flicker of uncertainty. Her pale blue eyes took in Lena's janitor's uniform, her brown skin, and the weary lines etched deep from years of worry. "I was waiting for my son," the woman said softly. She gestured helplessly toward the sky, as if the storm itself had ruined her plans. "Come with me," Lena offered. "My workplace is just around the corner. You can dry off there." The woman hesitated, that familiar pause Lena had come to expect, the silent calculation of whether she was someone to trust. It was something white folks did sometimes, subtle or not. But Lena didn't wait for an answer. She simply turned and started walking. After a moment, the woman followed. Lena led her to the back entrance of a janitorial office, a cluttered little space where she and the other cleaning staff kept their supplies. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a harsh white glare on scuffed linoleum floors. She rifled through her locker and pulled out an old but clean t-shirt. "Here," Lena said, handing it over. "It's not fancy, but it's dry." The woman took it with hesitation, her fingers brushing Lena's. "You don't have to do this," she murmured. Lena let out a short, tired laugh. "Lady, I don't have to do a lot of things." She shrugged out of her soaked windbreaker and hung it on the back of a chair. Then she unwrapped her piece of bread and held it out. "Eat," Lena said simply. The woman stared at the offering for a long moment. Then, with a faint, almost reluctant smile, she took it. She broke the bread in half and handed one piece back to Lena. "Thank you," she said. "My name's Evelyn." Lena replied. She shook the dampness from her sleeves. "Nice to meet you, Evelyn. Just wish it were under better circumstances." Evelyn chuckled softly and pulled a phone from her coat pocket. She typed a message quickly. "Don't come yet. I have something else to take care of. I'll call when I'm ready." Lena didn't notice. She was already busy wringing out the sleeves of her uniform and scavenging a cup of coffee from the break room. When she handed the steaming paper cup to Evelyn, the woman's hands trembled slightly from the cold. She wrapped them tightly around the cup, as if absorbing every ounce of warmth she could. Lena checked the clock. Her shift was about to start. She strapped on her utility belt and glanced back at Evelyn. "I gotta get to work," Lena said. "You can stay here a while and dry off. Just don't let anyone catch you. My boss is a piece of work." Evelyn raised a brow, a faint trace of amusement on her face. "Noted." Lena gave her a nod and stepped out into the quiet, sterile corridors of the office building. Most people never noticed janitors. They were invisible like ghosts. Lena had learned to live with it. But she hadn't gone far when she heard the sharp click of heels on the tile floor behind her. "Lena," came a voice she knew all too well. She turned slowly. Susan Merritt, her supervisor, stood there, thin and brittle-looking, with a perpetual scowl creasing her face. Her sharp gray eyes gleamed with irritation. "There's a woman sitting in the janitor's closet," Susan said flatly. "Who is she?" Lena's stomach tightened. "Just someone I helped out. She got caught in the rain." "This isn't a shelter, Lena. It's a workplace. Do I need to remind you of that? She's not bothering anyone." Susan's lips pinched tighter. "You people always think you can bend the rules. Bringing in strays like this is not your call. You're here to clean, not run a soup kitchen." Lena's hands clenched at her sides. "You people." She'd heard that before. She knew exactly what it meant. Susan stepped closer, lowering her voice to a condescending whisper. "Get rid of her, or you're done here." For a moment, Lena thought about backing down, apologizing. But then she remembered Evelyn's trembling hands, remembered the way people like Susan always thought they could decide who mattered. Lena pulled off her badge and dropped it on the counter with a sharp clink. "Then I'm done." Susan stared at her, stunned. "Excuse me. You heard me." And with that, Lena turned and walked away. Her pulse thundered in her ears, but there was a strange freedom in it. Back in the janitor's closet, Evelyn looked up as Lena grabbed her bag. "Everything all right?" Evelyn asked quietly. "We're leaving," Lena said. She slung her bag over her shoulder. "You need a ride somewhere?" Evelyn shook her head. "I don't have anywhere to go." Lena sighed and studied the older woman. Finally, she nodded. "Then you're coming with me." By the time they reached Lena's apartment, the rain had slowed to a gentle drizzle. The stairwell reeked of mildew, and the walls were cracked and peeling. But it was home. Lena let them inside, the door creaking on its hinges. "It ain't much," she said, kicking off her wet boots. "But it's dry." Evelyn stepped inside, glancing around at the threadbare furniture and the stack of overdue bills on the counter. Her gaze lingered on a photo of Micah, his gap-toothed grin lighting up the tiny frame. "Your son?" she asked softly. "Yeah," Lena replied, pulling out a chair. "He's at a friend's tonight." They sat quietly for a while. Evelyn shared little pieces of her past, a house she'd lost, a family that had drifted away. She didn't speak much of her son, just enough to make Lena wonder. "You got no one?" Lena asked gently. Evelyn's smile was faint. "No one who wants me." The words settled like a weight between them. Lena had enough on her plate already, but she wasn't about to turn her back on this woman. "You can stay here," Lena said. "For now." Evelyn's eyes widened. "You don't have to." "I know." Lena cut her off. "But I'm doing it anyway." That night, Lena made up the couch with an extra blanket. Evelyn sat quietly, her hands resting on her lap, until Lena disappeared into the back room. Later, Evelyn pulled out her phone and sent one last message. "I'll need you to come get me in the morning. I'll explain everything." When dawn broke, Lena found Evelyn already awake, sipping tea. She didn't remember making it. A knock sounded at the door. Lena's pulse quickened as she opened it. A tall man stood there, his silver-streaked hair neatly combed, his tailored suit immaculate. "Mother," he said. Lena turned slowly. Evelyn exhaled and set her mug down. "You told me you had no one," Lena whispered. Evelyn stood, smoothing the front of her borrowed sweater. "I needed to know," she said quietly, "if kindness still existed." Lena's jaw tightened. She had every right to be angry. But looking at Evelyn, She didn't see manipulation. She saw a woman searching for something real. What now? Lena muttered. That's up to you, Evelyn replied. Lena sighed and shook her head. Damn, lady. You sure know how to complicate a morning. Evelyn smiled warmly. It's a gift. Over time, everything changed. Lena helped Evelyn launch the Second Chance Foundation, offering job training, childcare, housing support. She became its heart and soul, helping people who had once stood where she did. And for the first time in her life, Lena wasn't just surviving. She was building something that mattered. One evening, as Lena locked up the office, Evelyn stood beside her. You've built something incredible, Evelyn said softly. Lena smirked. I had a good investor. Evelyn chuckled. No, Lena, you had a good heart. And for the first time, Lena believed it.